Okay, so BTP overview. So as we have seen, so this is the slide which we have seen already in S4HANA overview. So where business technology platform is going to be the future for all SAP developments. So whatever the development we take, including S4HANA on-premise, so the BTP is going to be the key strategy which SAP is applying on their own product. Okay, so if we see there are four strong pillars on it. So database and data management, analytics, application development and integration, intelligent technologies, everything. We talked about this slide. Okay, so and for BTP, we just have the hyperscaler. So these are the terms which we will be learning as a definitions. So a hyperscaler is nothing but a cloud provider. So whoever provides the space on the cloud, they are being called as hyperscaler in this generation of technology. Okay, so the hyperscaler word is across the industries. So it's across the technologies. So it's not only specific to SAP. So it's across the board. So now these are the other words which we have confusion filled up in our mind always. So public, private, hybrid. So what is public? Coming to the cloud. So cloud way of doing it. So these are the words we will be. These are the words we will be hearing. Public, private, hybrid. So the terms itself very familiar to us, public, private, hybrid. But coming to the cloud, if you see the public cloud, so this public cloud, a cloud provider provides a space to multiple customers. The space is being shared across multiple customers, but access is restricted to get onto the cloud. Okay, so if we want to put it like this, so a same space of hard drive has been shared, or database has been shared between two people, but they are password protected. Okay, but the device wise, it's a common. And if we go to the private one, private cloud, so it's a separate space allocated to the customer, okay, by the hyperscaler, and they have their own firewalls, and they enter through the firewalls. So that's what it is. And major comparison where we see between the public cloud and private cloud, public one can access through the internet from anywhere. Okay, so there will be no firewall stopping accessing the public features. But in private, we have to be authenticated to the firewall, and we have to be in the corporate network access. Okay, and these are not shared. This space is not shared between any of them, so it's specific to the customer. And now hybrid. So this hybrid, actually, it's a mixture of cloud and on-premise. Okay, so most of the customers in this migration to the S4HANA are choosing this hybrid approach. So they have their on-premise own on-premise system, where as a core system, and also cloud system for other capabilities like developing mobile applications and deploying them and keeping their core system clean in terms of the configs and testing scenarios, everything. And this is cloud as well as BTP as well as the on-premise system. That's what is the hybrid. So in hybrid, there are a lot of confusions around what can be done where and what I choose. what I have to as a technical consultant or things like that. But we don't need to be confused. But the S4 HANA product itself easily confusing us at some direction, unknowing direction. We know that what it is, but still we think to confuse very easily. Okay, I will clarify this hybrid going forward more. So proceeding further, so this is another terminology. So where whatever the software it comes as a cloud-based solution. And if we talk about cloud, so these are the terminologies we mainly hear from the industry generation. So the cloud computing. So this cloud computing, so even there are many cloud computing course providers. So there are more learnings or trainings happening on this cloud computing. So this cloud computing is a simple terminology that it's an infrastructure, providing infrastructure online, on the internet, through the internet. Whatever we get the infrastructure to run our business, the customer's business very easily without investing more towards the infrastructure to get them installed on their own private network, okay, or on their own data center. So providing everything, whatever the requirements for us, for example. So as an SAP developer or SAP consultant, whatever we need to perform our developments, for example, Fiori app development, uh, GUI, SAP GUI, or Adobe Lifecycle Designer. These are all the softwares what we need, and they should be licensed by the customer or the service provider to get our job done. This is all considered as an infrastructure, and these are all the softwares I said. But in fact, the infrastructure, wherever the uh, uh, data storage, everything, the servers, the memories, the storage hard disks, all these are considered as infrastructure. So the hyperscalers are the ones who step in, pitch in at this point, and they come forward and they do charge, but that is a nominal charge comparatively establishing the customer's own data center. So that is where the cloud computing comes in. So that's all we call it as cloud computing. So if you could have looked at the AWS point of view, AWS or um, Microsoft Azure, if if someone of your colleague or someone was working on this one, if you could have looked at their dashboards, you could realize something. So what are all the services they have? All these, whatever we are talking now, storage, databases, the memories, the virtual machines, the securities, the logging, the monitoring, everything, everything, they all provided as an individual service, and they are charged as per the service. Okay, so the cloud native is the um, other word, other terminology, and this cloud native talks about these services for logging or monitoring, virtual machine creation, memory allocation, um, monitoring services. All these are individual services. So those services are referred as microservices. Okay, so they need to do what they are doing at the moment. But if we see in SAP point of view, we have a lot of GUI based transaction codes. So let's correlate to this one. Okay, so these transactions, we cannot do the jobs of other transactions in one transaction. let's say SE38 transaction code does not do the job of SE24 unless you or write a local implementation of code, or I'm not getting into that one. But in general, you can't create a selection screen in SE24 transaction using the class and its methods, right? So SE38 alone is a service. SE24 alone is a service. If we segregate both of them and build a separate solution, individual solution, and provide it as a service, and if we are able to deploy that onto the cloud, and that becomes a microservice. Okay, you following? Yes. Okay, so that's where, so when we enter into the cloud, so these are may not be relevant at this point of time for us, but we are not sticking, we haven't stopped growing ourselves. We will be growing and we will see ourselves in better positions. So at some point we might need to know what this terminology is. Okay, so that's the reason I'm just mentioning all these terminologies. Okay, so this is another interesting one. Okay, that's fine. So we have the hyperscaler. Fine. So they will be providing the infrastructure or whatever we need to run our business. But here, uh, let- yeah. So hyperscaler providing the infrastructure. That's fine. That's the single word. But what are the things available inside those IT stacks? So what is really suitable for us? What a customer can bear and what a customer cannot bear, what he needs to take from the hyperscaler. Okay, so that's what we need to decide. The customer has to decide. If you look at this IT stack, we have the columns here: dedicated, virtualized, IAAS, container, PAAS, serverless, and SAAS. So these are all the types of IT stacks where customer is facilitated to subscribe and run their business. So if you look at these dark gray and light gray lines, they're not fully across the table. They stop at some point on each IT stack. So if you see in the dedicated one, so these are all the components of each stack. So network, obviously we need the network to be able to deploy or run our business using the infrastructure, cloud infrastructure on the internet. Of course, the storage we talked about, the server, so where we can um, process the request of user and we can go ahead. The virtualization, so the geographical type of solution deployment, and operating system. Of course, we need an operating system to run this one, and database. And yes, runtimes or libraries. Yes, we need these runtimes and libraries. So I'll give an example. So these runtimes and libraries is the best example for example is right now uh, we are using our mobile phones, right? So Android, it can be Android or Windows or BlackBerry or iOS, whatever it is. So if you carefully look at the time changing on the mobile phones, there might be little a little slight seconds difference between iOS and Android. So that is because so they are having their own common libraries based on their runtimes, okay, installed on their backend IT stacks. So those libraries are supporting their software, the common software, whatever, and the devices to operate or update automatically whatever the common functionalities are. Time is common. It's based on time zone. Time is common for all, right? So they are being published or operated through libraries. And security and integration, of course, this is the major component. Security these days, our data protection, customer data protection and market strategies and their planning, everything has to be protected from their each and every corner of the organization. Right, and finally, the application. This is the top layer of the uh, running the business. So as a user of the business, the organization, user doesn't care what the underlying thing it is. User really, it really doesn't matter to the user what type of runtime you are using, what type of database you are using. It really doesn't matter. It will be covering, it will be, the application will be the wrap up of all these underlying IT components, IT stack components. Okay. So now we are just moving to virtualized. So this virtualized is something, uh, so these virtualized IAAS, container, PAAS, serverless, and SAAS. So these are all the individual IT stacks where each IT stack will contain the limited number of the IT stack components. Okay, so it is according to the customer requirements. So whatever the type of IT stack customer needs to subscribe, he can go for it and he can subscribe the required IT stack. So that there are a lot of parameters for the customer to decide on this one. Okay, so based on their existing, the customer might be newly moving to cloud or already existing in the cloud, already having an on-premise and moving to cloud. There are a lot of scenarios of the customers where they can act accordingly. But what is for our knowledge, we just need to know, okay, so there are these types of IT stacks where customer can run their business. As a technical consultant, I need to know what type of IT stack it is. So based on that, we, as a technical consultant, we will understand, okay, so this is this is the development approach is something different for this. I need to go for additional installation or additional software purchase, something like that. Okay. So to get to that knowledge, we just have these IT stacks arranged here. So if you look at this virtualized and IaaS, so they are covering from network to virtualization. So they don't cover the database, they don't cover the operating system, and rest of the things are not covered in this subscription. So here for us, IaaS is relevant in the IaaS is relevant for SAP. So some of the customers, they just take some infrastructure. So IaaS stands for infrastructure as a service. So there will be no further support apart from these four components. So, okay, customer buys, okay, that's fine. So you're saying IaaS customer has subscribed to IaaS, and what happens next? So again, the customer will be subscribing operating system, databases, and all these services on top of it. And then we'll be going further. And if you see this container-based system, so this container-based, we have operating system included. So when S4HANA was launched, few of the customers were opting IAAS and container-based alone. And then there was a lot of realization of cost increment in these approaches. Then they moved to PAAS. So if you see this PAAS, platform as a service. So this platform as a service, it contains database, runtimes, libraries, securities and integration, all these services, storage, server, everything from network to security and integration, we have everything included in PAAS. So this PAAS is very much relevant for us because our our BTP, business technology platform, is coming under this PAAS, platform as a service. So BTP is platform as a service. So we have a lot of things. We do not need to worry about operating system. We do not need to worry about databases. We do not need to worry about runtime libraries. Everything, server, storage, network, nothing. We just go to the BTP and go to the service and work on it and see the real benefits or real capabilities of that particular service provided on the BTP. And next, serverless. So this serverless is partial applications. So if you see, it has been cut down in the halfway through the application layer. So here, so we can deploy applications. If the customer doesn't want to deploy any application, he can just use that as a platform as a service. So in this serverless, so mainly the V4 data services and rest, basically the rest sits on the top. The REST services will communicate to the applications and all other underlying layers, irrespective of the server. So here for us, CAP, Cloud Application Programming Model. Cloud Application Programming Model comes under serverless architecture, serverless IT stack. So which includes the skills, Node.js and etc. And next, moving to SaaS. So software as a solution. So here it's ready to use. So no need to build the application as well. So here everything will be a single package. If we buy a software, that's it. So it comes along with the applications, everything underlying whatever needs for the application, everything is included in it. Okay. So SAP S/4HANA Cloud is a SaaS solution. And also there are more SaaS solutions, SAP Fieldglass, SuccessFactors, Ariba, Concur, all these are coming under this SaaS solutions. Moving forward. So if you see, this is the another slide for explaining the PAAS. So platform as a service is just this in more detail, whatever the underlying layers have independently or individually. So we have just seen here is just PAAS, okay, security integration, runtime and libraries, all these database and operating system, etc. But this one is in more clear about what layers are covering what. Okay, so if you see here, network services and foundation services. So these are the bottom layers and runtime environments. So these are the runtime environments here. So we have Schema environment, Cloud Foundry environment, ABAP environment, and functions environment. So in this one, so there is one IT stack is missing. I think maybe SAP may bring it later. So function as a service, FAAS. So function as a service is missing. So that comes again similarly like serverless IT stack. So here in this slide, this has been included in the runtime. So functions. Okay, so so we don't need to dig into more about what is schema, whether I'm relevant as being in SAP consultant. Do I really need to worry about this schema, Cloud Foundry, or these runtime environments? Definitely no. So it's a runtime environment where we don't really get in and see how it is functioning, but underlying, so there will be there are like server side uh, the architecture side running environments. Okay, so these the services, commercial services and network services. If you look at network services, routing, traffic management, custom domains. So these are all, each one have their capabilities. So the network services, routing, if we want to direct or forward any specific URL to a specific application on specific server. Okay, how do we do that? So it's just controlled by the routing concept. And traffic management. So whether if the more traffic, how many requests we are getting per day, how this application is being used, is the traffic is being more than expected, then what are the alternate plans? Okay, let's go for another server, or increase the existing server capacity, etc. Okay, and custom domains. So if we develop an application, if we want that to be a fancy domain for it, so then let's create that fancy domain followed by the organization name and then publish it. Okay, and if you see here, security services, so these are all XSUAA. I think might be already hearing about this XSUAA, where it comes from the Access Engine of cloud database, and this also covers in native applications. So CAP native applications and audit logging services and malware scanners, as we discussed earlier. All these are being covered in this one. And application services, so destination and connectivity, deployment service, metering services. So all these are application services. So we will be seeing all these services, not may not be all, but definitely destinations and connectivity, deployment service. We will be seeing all these services, and alert notifications and observability services. If you see here, cloud logging. So we can enable cloud logging for specific application. So if whatever the information is being transmitted, or if there are any errors, they all we can monitor on the cloud itself. Okay, application performance monitoring as a service. So we can monitor the application performance as well. So what the request has been sent and how soon the request has been answered from the requested system, etc. Okay, so these backing services, so they are data backups happens underlying layers. So in reality, we will not be working on any of these ones, but these are all the services, platform as a service, running underlying BTP. So if we perform some activity on our BTP, then they're all together serving to the purpose of the user. And integration service. So this integration service, yes, of course, cloud platform integration, CPI, what we have seen, but this CPI has been rebranded as integration suite. Okay, and API management. So this API management, we will see this API management as well. So this is the great place where protecting the organization's data and collectively storing all the APIs at one place. And enterprise messaging. So this enterprise messaging is widely used on SAP work zone. So where within the organization, everybody can communicate each other. So right now, I think Yammer is uh, a similar service from Microsoft, but internally on the launchpad, SAP has this enterprise messaging service. And API Business Hub. So this API Business Hub, it is similarly to this API management. But API management is customer oriented, and API Business Hub is SAP oriented. Okay, so API Business Hub will have all of the pre-delivered, standard delivered APIs from SAP, and we can choose what API we can search for API in API Business Hub. And these are all the extension services, whatever we can go and use those and deploy into our respective systems. Either it could be on premise or it could be onto BTP. So if you see here, business rules, workflow, these are all we are familiar by names itself. Business rules, it's a BRF plus, and workflow. We know what is workflow, what it does in backend. Though we don't know how to deal with a workflow, but as I mentioned, SE38 and SE24 as a service. So this workflow has been brought as an independent service onto the cloud. Okay, and Business Application Studio, where we will be developing our UI5 applications, and extension factory. So if we want to extend any of the on-premise solutions or SaaS solutions, so there is an extension factory as well, and mobile services. So we can develop the mobile applications, we can deploy the mobile applications, and we can control the users registered on the mobile services, and we can look out who registered and what kind of devices. We can even control the number of devices, etc. There are a lot of feasibilities available on this mobile services. And portal. So this portal, again, we had this portal service when we were on ERP, and now this portal is being called as Launchpad in SAP S/4HANA. But same has been launched in BTP as well. So BTP right now it is portal, but it is going to be rebranded as SAP Launchpad service from January 12th of next year. And there's collaboration services, how the applications are being configured and etc. And CI. So this is again coming to the digital experience portfolio, and this is conversational artificial intelligence, CI, and multi-channel access. So this freestyle UI, metadata UI. So this is where we will be developing our applications. So these type of developments are available in across all the technologies. If the developer wants to choose a freestyle of development, they can go for freestyle development, and if they want to go with the metadata UI, they can simply generate the applications in few clicks or etc. Okay, so now this is the application update, CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment. So all these features are included in platform as a service. Okay, so if you see all these platform as a service, underlying runtime environment is again Kubernetes environment. Okay, so moving to next, and this is the virtualization and hardware infrastructure again for the same. So right now we have seen only the services and how they are arranged on top of hardware. Okay, and now if you see here the virtualization, how it will be virtualized in the hardware components and hardware and infrastructure underlying this. So here the virtual computing, RAM, whatever the CPU, what kind of CPU it is, how many cores it has, and what size of RAM it has, and etc. And the virtual network, what is the network it is being considered, and virtual storage, where it is block or blob or mountable file system or etc. So this is block means fixed storage. Mountable file system is nothing but it's a SFTP kind of, and blob it's a media and graphical or geographical something. So all these types of storage will be there in blob. And virtual load balancing. So obviously there should be a load balancing. So these all layers has been taken care in the virtualization layer. Container registry. So which container needs to integrate with the which virtual storage or some virtual load balancing services, etc. So and DNS certificate management. So these we know that how domain name systems will be connected, what are the domains and etc. and what are the certificates these domains needs to be using to communicate with these things. And now hardware and infrastructure again, compute, CPU, RAM, the exact size of the cores and the size of the RAM and network, everything again. And this is load balance, time servers, etc. So these are the main components of the hardware and infrastructure. So now, okay. So this one is the commercial models of SAP. If a customer wants to subscribe to any of the IT stack, either can be a PAAS or SAAS, whatever, or if he subscribed to PAAS, and there are many services where the customer decides to use, how the commercial model works for the customer. So here CPEA is the Cloud Platform Enterprise Agreement. It's just a consumption-based one. And next one is pay-as-you-go for SAP BTP. And these are self-explanatory. So these are consumption-based. Whatever the services customer consumes, customer will be paying for that specifically. So if customer is not using, customer will not be paying it. And pay-as-you-go. So you put your money and you consume, pay for it. Put your money and use it, then just stop it. Okay, you will not be having any commitment here. So whenever you stop paying it, so then all your services will be stopped. But subscription based, it's a fixed commitment, and you will be paying some upfront costs for services, whether you use your services or you don't use your services. Irrespective of that one, you will be paying for it. So this is applicable for large scale. And here the recommended one is consumption based commercial model. So these consumption based, these two comes under consumption based model. So either of the ones we can go for it. Okay. So and now free tier services also available. So this free tier and free trial. Free trial is for a specific period, and free tier we will have to pay for it, whatever the services we are using. But those services or the prototyping whatever we use or develop in our BTP account, they can be converted as productive versions. So that's the reason we have free tier services. So there will be a nominal cost for hyperscalers. So these services will be provided on the hyperscalers wherever possible, and we can build our prototypes without no limits, and those prototypes can be converted into the real licensed BTP and enterprise versions. So right now the organizations are opting these free tier services where they can spend less money and they can check according to their organization requirements whether SAP solutions suit for them or not. And if they decide yes, this is worth converting into the real SAP customer, then they just convert all those prototypes into the real applications or real world, and then they will be taking forward. So in that case, whatever the money they paid for free trial, that's not being wasted. If they decide not to go ahead with this, again they have saved a lot of money without a initial commitment or initial decision to move to SAP. Okay, and this is just for simplification. What are the use cases functionally? So this slide is for functionalities, whatever we have. So embedded intelligence, out of the box integration, yes, of course, user experience, how the user experience is across all the industries. So, and automation comes here, and conversational UI, embedded analytics, connected devices, data intelligence, etc. Okay, so the other one, this is really interesting right now. Everybody is on it. Rise with SAP. So rise with SAP. So can anybody say whether you already came across this term, rise with SAP, and your understanding? So this rise with SAP is a package of services which is provided by SAP towards migrating the customers onto S/4HANA. Okay, so if you see here, so business process redesign, business process intelligence and technical migration, build your intelligent enterprise network, applications, platform, infrastructure, everything, whatever we are talking about, the BTP. So these are all the services. Okay, so let's do the uh, readiness check of the customer into migrating into S/4HANA. And what about the data migration strategies? What about the BTP strategies? What about the database migration strategies? So in these all the aspects, the customer has to perform before they migrate into S/4HANA, right? So these are all the individual aspects. So now, so for from customer point of view, I'm not sure how they uh, come to an agreement on the each stage of it. So first they start doing the database migration across their SAP system. So it's not that straightforward that the customer, whoever using SAP, they will have one system or one landscape or something like that. So they will have various number of systems. Okay, so considering all those landscapes, whatever the customer is having, so they all needs to be migrated to HANA database first. So there is some considerable work underneath it. So customer has to call up the service providers and go for the discussion and scope the work and come to a commercial agreement and then deliver it. Okay, and okay, database migration is done. Then how about the data migration? Data migration to S4HANA. How about the initial setup of the S4HANA systems? Okay, so they're all coming into the multiple agreements in the process of migrating to S4HANA. But what SAP thought, okay, let's scrap all of them. We don't need multiple agreements. Let's bring all of them onto the table and do one agreement for all of this. Okay, for database migration and for application migration, or the data migration and the BTP setup and all the connectivities, everything, whatever the tools, all these ones are combined into one package. That package is called Rise with SAP. So there will be one agreement and one approach and one delivery, one service provider. There will be no other things. So that is what is called Rise with SAP. So right now, this is the time where everybody or every customer thinking about going to or migrating to S4HANA, as the ERP is coming to an end by 2027. So everybody is thinking about Rise with SAP because this is the reasonable budget, and they can easily go ahead and achieve within their timelines. Okay, that's it for our not recap, the introduction, terminology, the BTP architecture, IT stacks, definitions, all these ones are up to that place. Now we are into the real BTP architecture. So okay, that is all. So far, whatever we have covered, all underlying BTP components and the commercial models to the customer. But now what we see on the platform as a service, on the BTP, when we go to the internet and when we open the BTP, what we see and how we set up our account and how we will be able to utilize all those services, whatever has been discussed so far. Okay, so I have shared a link to register SAP account. So I'm hoping everybody registered and have their own account. Am I right?
No, not yet done. I do. Yeah, even I have to do that.
Okay. Okay. So I think if you walk along with me, then that will be more easier. So because whatever we hear, that may not be helpful many times. If we do some hands-on, definitely a snapshot will remain in our mind. So that's what I believe. So if you have not registered or if you don't have a SAP account, just create an SAP account. It's just SCM account is enough. I'm hoping everybody having it. I thought everybody having the account, but surprising. Okay.
Is it a P account?
Yes, yes, it's exactly same.
I think so.
Yes, yes. So if you have that account and we are ready to get on to BTP. So the architecture point of view, so this is how the BTP accounting BTP environment has been designed. So there will be a one global account. So this is the root for all the accounts underneath it, and there can be n number of sub accounts under the global account. Okay, so how these accounts affect or how these accounts are relevant for us. So this is what the question occurs here. So these can be utilized for services. So these sub accounts again against to the service, region. So these region versus sub account. So a sub account can be assigned or created in one region. So these regions are nothing but they are the data centers. So each data center will have some capabilities. So every region does not have all the services available on that particular region. So if we need any specific service, we need to choose the region that service is available. Okay, so that and at the same time, so these sub accounts can be these sub accounts can be utilized as an equivalent on-premise equivalent landscapes. For example, sub account A can be used as a development equivalent sub account. Sub account B can be used as a quality or system integration test environment, and sub account C can be utilized as a production equivalent sub account to the on-premise. Okay, so if you see the global account and sub account A, what all we can have in a sub account? Sub account can have a lot of things. So on the sub account, we will be adding the users, but internally the services, applications, and subscriptions. So we see majorly these three components under a sub account. So what are the applications running on this environment? I would say not sub account. We say this as an environment. Then our mind will easily gets what it is. So on this environment, we have all these three components: applications, services, subscriptions. Okay, what are the services available on this environment? What are the services I have subscribed? How I'm using those subscribed services? Okay, so moving to next one. So regions and environments. So if you see this region, region again the applications. So this region is, if you see here, region versus sub account. So they are one-to-one related. So if you see same components, application, services, and the infrastructure, how this region is supported with the infrastructure. So in this region, this is the data center as I referred. Okay, how the data is arranged, how the security on this region, um, uh, what are the runtime environments available on this one, and what are the services available. So if you see here environment, and this environment is having again the runtime services tools. What are the tools available? So these are all required for the application. So what application we decide to subscribe from this region, what application we decide to use from this region will drive all these things. So for example, recently, I'm not sure where I can mention this one or not, how safe the region we are choosing. So let's say if there is some data center in region X, the region X is um, regularly flooded with the rains and things like that. So how safe is for us to choosing this region? Though there will be a lot of backups happening, but still, so in that front, we might need to think about this region. So all these data centers across the globe, whatever, we are not restricted to choose a specific region. We can choose any region where our required service is available. Okay, so these are the runtime environments. If you see here, runtime environments. So what are the runtime environments available? Cloud Foundry runtime environment, Schema runtime environment, ABAP runtime environment. So these are the runtime environment. Accordingly, we will be choosing choosing our runtime environment. So what type of application we are trying to build, what type of application is uh, required for across the customer business, what is the existing architecture of the customer, of the particular customer, and majority of the applications, what are the majority of the customers applications running, and what are the skills are used for that particular applications, development of that applications will drive this decision. Okay, so runtime environments of BTP. Cloud Foundry is one of the environment which is most preferred as a BTP customer. Okay, so technical aspects, whatever we discussed so far, we don't need to worry about it. So they are all the what we have discussed are all part of Cloud Foundry. Even BTP is running on Cloud Foundry environment, platform as a service. So this ABAP. So again, this ABAP, if we want to integrate the on-premise developments and the cloud developments together, and if we want to use the artifacts or commonly between the on-premise and cloud, then we will be choosing ABAP runtime environment. And schema, so this is applicable if we are building a full stack applications, Java or any other technologies based. And also the schema environment is being used by SAP to cater all the underlying capabilities of BTP again. So we will not be saying that. If we choose any microservice based approaches to build a service, for example, if we think some solution is in our mind, if we want to build that as a service and deploy it on cloud on BTP, then we might need to choose schema environment for that purpose. Okay, so we see all these options when we try to create our BTP environment, BTP cockpit on our own account. So that time we will get more idea on that one. So this is most important slide. I like it. So what we need to know? Okay, what skills are required for choosing a specific environment? Okay, so if you see, it is clearly mentioned for Cloud Foundry runtime environment, pros and good for and skills. Whatever the skills is required, my eyes automatically I don't need to go to pros or good for whatever. I just need to look at the skills, whether I'm suitable for this or not. Right. So understanding SAP CDS, Fiori, SAP HANA Enterprise expert in programming. So this is quite enough for me to choose Cloud Foundry environment. If you see here, schema runtime environment, the skill section, Kubernetes knowledge, no. Docker, I don't know. Node.js, partially. Any major programming language, I know ABAP, but ABAP is not suitable for this. Okay. So major programming, it could be a Java, PHP, or Python, C++, or such languages. Ruby on Rails. So any language can be interpreted into schema environment. So ABAP environment, by name itself, blindly we can go ahead and choose this ABAP environment. So ability to write modern ABAP code. So this is where if you are normal ABAP, if you know how to code well normally before 7.4, then you might need to slightly upgrade to 7.4 syntaxes, where all these more ABAP environment on cloud is leveraged greatly into the next level of ABAP. Okay, So RESTful application programming and etc. So if you see here, reuse existing on-premise ABAP assets, so we can establish connections between BTP ABAP and on-premise. So when we refer to ABAP on cloud, it's again the same. ABAP on cloud. So this is obviously running on HANA database. So we can use ABAP on HANA syntax as everything. So right now we have ABAP on HANA and ABAP on cloud. They are the trending words I'm hearing daily. So the difference is, yes, it's both ABAP on cloud. If we know ABAP on cloud, we know ABAP on HANA as well. Okay, the ABAP on HANA, there is some little bit of native SQL. So the native SQL, again, if we decide to use them, we can use them here as well. If we don't decide to use them, so the ABAP on HANA native SQL is purely applicable for analytics. So BW, BPC, they in that area, in the modeling point of view, we will be using pure database procedures and etc. So I hope this slide will give you more clarity on which runtime environment we will be choosing and what are the runtime environments available and what runtime is used for what. Okay, so it's just the relationships, how we create the accounts on our BTP. As I mentioned, the entitlements, these are all just monitoring purposes. The left side ones, entitlements of this global account of how many services we have subscribed and how much we have used and quotas. If you see how much we have used and how much is rest, and do we need to top up based on our subscription. If we are based on subscription based or consumption based or pay as you go, it is completely depending on that one. So right side one, this one already we know that. So regions, global account, the regions, we will have regions. Regions is nothing but sub account, number of sub accounts again. And the admins, who are the admins for this global account. And license type, what is the license type? That means subscription type, whether it is consumption based or pay as you go or subscription based, consumption based. And directory, so this directory we can have again a number of directories for this one. Sub account, again this sub account can have a number of sub accounts 0 to n, and admins for this one. So if you see the region for the sub account, it's only one, maximum one. It's 1-to-1 relation. Okay, business user IDP. So this IDP is identity provider. So whatever the identity provider we use, so these identity provider, no need to get confused. It's just whether we are using the form-based authentication or single sign-on authentication. So authentication mechanism is we are referring to IDP here. Okay, and the environment. So environments, we can create 1 to 3 environments. So why? Because we have only 3 runtime environments, one for Cloud Foundry, one for ABAP, and one for Kima. So only 3 environments, 3 runtime environments we can create under a sub account. Okay, so fine. So now we will be entering into the BTP.